Hello friends, myself Krishna. Welcome to my YouTube channel Versatile Vision. Today we are going to talk about mystery of Hamas and Israel. Have you ever pondered why the conflict between Hamas and Israel appears to be an unsolvable riddle? It's a question that captures our attention, isn't it? An enigma that has persisted for decades, seemingly immune to resolution. But what makes it so? First, we need to understand the key players. On one side, we have Israel, a sovereign state situated in the Eastern Mediterranean region. It's a nation with an ancient history and a modern reality, a place where tradition and innovation intermingle. Israel is often seen as a beacon of democracy in a region where such systems are scarce. On the other side, we have Hamas, a Palestinian political organization. It emerged in the late 20th century during a time of great turmoil. Hamas has its roots in the wider Islamic resistance movement and has always maintained a dual character, part political, part militant. Its ultimate goal is the liberation of Palestine, and it's ready to fight for it. But the conflict between these two entities is not just a simple case of one side versus the other. It's a complex puzzle, a tangled web of historical, political, and religious factors. For instance, the creation of Israel in 1948 led to the displacement of many Palestinians, a historical event that still fuels resentment today. Political issues such as the control over territories and resources add another layer of complexity. And let's not forget the religious dimension. Jerusalem, a city sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, is at the heart of the dispute. In attempting to untangle this web, one thing becomes clear: there is no easy solution. The narratives and identities of both sides are deeply intertwined with this conflict. It's not just about land or power, it's about history, identity, and survival. As we delve into the roots of this conflict, remember, history is not merely black and white, but a spectrum of shades. Understanding this conflict requires us to look beyond the surface to explore the nuances and complexities that lie beneath. So, let's embark on this journey together as we seek to unravel the unresolved question: why does the conflict between Hamas and Israel persist? The seeds of this conflict were sown long before the formation of Israel and Hamas. Our story begins in the early 20th century with the Balfour Declaration of 1917. This was a public statement issued by the British government during World War I, promising the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This was a land already inhabited by a majority Arab population, setting the stage for future tension. Fast forward to 1922, the League of Nations grants Britain the mandate over Palestine. In the mandate's text, Britain is tasked with putting into effect the Balfour Declaration. This further stirs the pot as the Arab population feels increasingly marginalized in their own land. Then, in 1948, a monumental shift occurs. Israel is officially declared a state. This event, which is celebrated by Jews around the world as a long-awaited return to their ancestral homeland, is viewed by Palestinians as a catastrophe, or Nakba in Arabic. In the wake of Israel's formation, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are displaced from their homes, a wound that still festers today. Following the formation of Israel, a series of Arab-Israeli wars ripple across the region. These wars, marked by bloodshed and loss on both sides, only serve to deepen the divide and mistrust between Israelis and Palestinians. It's important to note that this is not a simple story of one side against the other. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of national identity, religion, and a shared love for a land both call home. Each side carries its own narrative of victimhood and survival, and these narratives often clash sharply, making a peaceful resolution all the more elusive. By the time the late 20th century rolls around, the seeds of conflict have grown into a thorny bush, impossible to untangle. The tension between Israelis and Palestinians is at a boiling point. The stage was set, the players were ready, and the conflict had already begun to simmer. In the midst of this boiling tension, Hamas was born. The year was 1987, and the region was in the throes of the First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation. It was during this turbulent time that Hamas, an acronym for Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, or the Islamic Resistance Movement, was formed. This resistance movement was not a singular entity, but rather a complex organization with both political and military wings. The political wing, seen by many as the public face of Hamas, focused on social services, education, and religious activities. It aimed to win the hearts and minds of the Palestinian people, earning their support and trust. On the other hand, the military wing, known as the Is ad-Din al-Qassam Brigades, adopted a more aggressive approach. Its objective, the liberation of Palestine from the Israeli occupation by any means necessary, including armed struggle. This dichotomy between the political and military wings of Hamas often led to a conflicting image of the organization, further complicating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. As the First Intifada subsided, Hamas had established itself as a significant player in the region. However, the movement's real test came during the Second Intifada in the early years of the new millennium. This time, the uprising was more violent, more intense, and the role of Hamas was even more pronounced. It was during this period that the world witnessed some of the most devastating suicide bombings, a tactic that Hamas infamously employed. The Second Intifada solidified Hamas's position as a formidable force in the conflict, a force that Israel could not ignore. Hamas's emergence added a new layer of complexity to an already intricate conflict. It was no longer just a dispute over territory, it was a battle of ideologies, a struggle for control, and a fight for the hearts and minds of the Palestinian people. With Hamas's entry, the conflict took on a new dimension. From here on, the conflict entered a deadly cycle of violence. Like a whirlwind, the early 2000s saw a surge in rocket attacks, suicide bombings, airstrikes, and invasions. Each act of violence was a response to the previous one, creating an endless loop of hostility that seemed impossible to break. The cycle of violence escalated drastically in the year 2006, when Hamas, a political organization with a military wing, emerged victorious in the Palestinian legislative elections. This victory was a game changer. It was not just a political shift, but also a signal of escalating tensions and mounting frustrations. The aftermath of the election was a clear reflection of the volatile situation. The international community, including Israel and several other countries, refused to recognize the Hamas-led government. The reason? They considered Hamas to be a terrorist organization. This refusal led to a severe economic blockade of the Gaza Strip, a small self-governing Palestinian territory, where the majority of the Palestinian population resides. The blockade had far-reaching consequences. It resulted in a humanitarian crisis, with severe shortages of basic necessities like food, water, and medical supplies. But it also fueled the fire of resentment and anger, leading to an increase in rocket attacks against Israel. These attacks, in turn, provoked retaliatory airstrikes and invasions by Israel, each action further fueling the cycle of violence. In this relentless cycle, both sides have suffered immense losses. Thousands of lives have been lost, homes destroyed, and hopes shattered, yet the cycle continues. It's a spiral of violence that seems to have no end, a cycle that has become a way of life for the people of Israel and Palestine. The relentless cycle of violence has made the situation complex and the resolution even more challenging. It's not just about political disagreements anymore. It's about deep-rooted hatred, fear, and a desperate desire for survival. In this vicious cycle, peace seems to be a distant dream. But let's not lose hope. After all, dreams have a way of becoming a reality, don't they? So, where does this leave us now, you might ask? As we move forward in time, the conflict between Hamas and Israel continues to shape the geopolitical landscape, not just in the Middle East, but around the globe. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of historical grudges, religious beliefs, political ideologies, and territorial disputes, all of which have contributed to the current state of affairs. Internationally, the response has been as varied as it is impassioned. Some nations staunchly back Israel, citing its right to self-defense, while others rally behind Hamas, pointing to the plight of the Palestinian people. Many, however, call for a balanced approach, advocating for mutual recognition, compromise, and dialogue. Efforts towards peace talks have been frequent, yet fraught with challenges. Initiatives like the Oslo Accords or the Camp David Summit, though promising at first, eventually dissolved amidst mistrust and renewed violence. Despite these setbacks, the quest for peace persists, fueled by the belief that diplomacy can pave the way towards a lasting solution. Yet, beyond the political maneuvering and diplomatic dialogues, we must not forget the human cost of this conflict. It's a cost borne by ordinary individuals on both sides whose lives have been irrevocably marked by loss, fear, and uncertainty. Mothers and fathers who fear for their children's futures. Young people who grow up amidst the echoes of gunfire and the rubble of destroyed homes. This is the reality that underscores the urgent need for a resolution. A solution that does not merely halt the violence temporarily, but addresses the root causes of the conflict, fostering mutual understanding and respect. Solution that acknowledges the rights and aspirations of all parties involved, whether they are Israeli or Palestinian. As we reflect on the history of this conflict, one can only hope for a peaceful resolution that respects the rights and aspirations of all involved. It's a hope that, despite the hurdles, continues to flicker, lighting the path towards a future where peace is more than just an elusive dream. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe my YouTube channel Versatile Visions